They thought it was a harmless little setup, a blind date arranged by friends who meant well, a single black father on one side of the table, a heavy white woman on the other. Two people the world is quick to label before they even speak. When she walked into the cafe, 3 seconds of silence rearranged the room. Curious eyes turned into quiet verdicts. No one expected the evening to last past 10 minutes. But then the man told a story about a question his 7-year-old daughter had asked him, and the room stopped breathing. The rain over Brooklyn that Saturday evening was the soft kind. The kind that doesn't fall so much as hang in the air, beating on coat sleeves and softening the streetlights into halos. In a small brownstone apartment in Bedford-Stuyvesant, a man named Ethan Cole was sitting on the edge of his daughter's bed trying to braid her hair without pulling. Maya was 7. She had her mother's stubborn cowlick and a habit of asking questions at the worst possible moments. "Daddy, where are you going?" Ethan worked the comb through a knot, careful. 3 years of practice and his fingers still felt too big for this. "I'm going to meet a new friend." "Is she nice?" "I don't know yet, baby. I hope so." Maya turned her head a little, catching her own reflection in the small dresser mirror. She studied herself the way only children do, with no agenda, no apology. Then she said very quietly, "If she's not nice, you can come home early. I'll wait up." Something caught in his throat that had no business being there. He finished the braid, tied it off with a yellow elastic, and pressed his lips against the top of her head longer than he needed to. It had been 3 years since Sarah died. 3 years since he'd sat across from a woman who wasn't a coworker or a relative or a friend's wife. He didn't know if he was ready. He suspected he wasn't. But Marcus, his oldest friend, had cornered him in the parking lot after pickup last Tuesday and said, "Brother, you've been raising that little girl by yourself for 3 years. You don't have to marry the woman. You just have to drink a cup of coffee with her." So here he was, buttoning a clean shirt, telling his babysitter he'd be back by 10, kissing his daughter goodbye and walking out into the soft rain with the strange, hollow feeling of a man re-entering a country he had not visited in a long time. Across the river in a small apartment on the Upper West Side, a woman named Claire Bennett was on her 4th outfit. She had tried the navy dress, which made her arms look bigger. She had tried the black tunic, which made her look like she was hiding. She had tried the wine-colored sweater, which made her face look red. Now she was back to the first thing, the soft gray top with the long sleeves, and she was standing in front of her bedroom mirror, making a series of small adjustments she had been making for as long as she could remember. Pulling the fabric down over her hips, angling her shoulders, tilting her chin to find the angle where the line of her jaw was sharpest. Her phone buzzed on the dresser. It was Rachel FaceTiming. "Tell me you're not bailing." "I haven't bailed." "Your face says you're 3 seconds from bailing." Claire laughed, which came out thin. "Rachel, I love you. I know you mean well, but what if I just didn't go?" Rachel's face on the small screen got serious in a way Claire rarely saw. "Honey, listen to me. I have known you for 6 years. I have watched you turn down 3 good men and 4 mediocre ones because you decided ahead of time how the night would go. This one is different. I'm telling you. Just sit at the table." Claire didn't answer right away. She was looking at her reflection. The pull, the angle, the chin. The choreography of a woman who had learned by 12 or 13 that her body was a thing that needed managing. Somewhere along the way, the management had become the whole performance. After Rachel hung up, Claire sat on the edge of her bed and typed a message. "I'm so sorry. I think I'm coming down with something." Her thumb hovered over the send button for almost a full minute. Then she set the phone down without sending it, picked up her coat, and went to find her keys. 2 people, 2 apartments, 2 mirrors. Neither of them knew the other was standing in front of their own. There is something almost no one talks about, but anyone who has ever waited for a hard meeting knows it. Before the moments that matter, we don't really stand in front of mirrors. We stand in front of every gaze that has ever shaped us, every classmate, every parent, every old lover, every stranger who once let their eyes linger a half-second too long. The mirror is just the surface where all of that gathers. And the question being asked, even if no one says it out loud, is older than any of us. Am I still someone worth being seen? The Lantern was a coffee house and bookshop tucked into a corner of Park Slope. It had warm wood, slow music, and the kind of low yellow lamplight that made strangers look kinder than they were. Ethan got there first. He ordered a black coffee, paid in cash, and sat at a table near the window. He turned his phone face down. He tried to remember how to sit like a man who wasn't waiting for bad news. The bell over the door rang. A woman in a soft gray top stepped inside, shaking rain from her coat. What happened next took maybe 3 seconds. A couple at the table near the bar, a sharp-jawed man named Trevor and his girlfriend Megan, had been laughing about something. Trevor's eyes flicked to Claire, then to Ethan, then back to his girlfriend, and the laugh he gave next had a different shape to it. The kind of laugh that wasn't really at a joke. Megan didn't laugh with him, but she didn't tell him to stop either. 2 college girls at a couch by the bookshelves looked up. One of them whispered something. The other smiled in that closed-mouth way that isn't actually a smile. Behind the counter, a woman in her 50s named Lena, who had been pouring coffee in this room for 12 years, looked up too. But her face did not move the way the others' faces moved. She just watched. The way a person watches who has seen too many small cruelties to be surprised by them, and too many small mercies to give up on the room. Ethan stood. He pulled the chair out for Claire. It was a small thing, the kind of thing a man does without thinking if he was raised by a woman who insisted on it. But Claire actually stopped hand on the back of the chair and looked at him for a second too long. It had been a very long time since anyone had pulled a chair out for her without it feeling like a performance. "Sorry I'm late," she said, sitting. I'm not late. I came on time. I just walked around the block twice trying to talk myself into being a person." "You made it," Ethan said. "That counts." She tried a smile. It came out crooked. She tried again. Better. She launched into the small talk the way swimmers launch off a starting block full speed and immediately out of breath. "So, Marcus and Rachel. Wow. They are absolutely insufferable about how cute they are, aren't they? I keep telling Rachel that no one wants to hear about how her husband does the dishes. We get it, Rachel. Your marriage works. We've been informed. Anyway, I had 3 cookies before coming over here for courage." That's a lie. It was 4. She waited for the laugh that usually came when she said things like that. The protective laugh. The one that reset the room and let everyone know she had said the thing first, so no one else had to. Ethan didn't laugh. He didn't smile either. He didn't frown. He just looked at her steady like a man listening to something more important than the words. Claire felt the silence land in her chest. It was worse than mockery would have been. Mockery, at least she had a script for. "You okay?" she asked. "Yeah." "You're allowed to laugh at the cookie joke. It was a workable joke." "It was," he said. "I just don't think you meant it." The next part she would remember for a long time, mostly because of how fast it happened. Trevor 2 tables over said something to Megan in a low voice. Megan made a small sound that wasn't quite a laugh, but wasn't quite not a laugh either. Claire's ears caught it the way ears do when they have been trained to catch things like that since middle school. Her face changed. The smile slid off the way water slides off a leaf. She set her cup down very carefully as if it were something breakable, and she looked Ethan straight in the eye. "Listen," she said, and her voice was different now, lower, almost gentle. "I see them looking. I've been seeing them my whole life. You don't owe me anything. You can stand up, walk out, text Marcus that I wasn't your type, and we never have to do this again. I won't be angry. I promise. I'd actually prefer it. It's easier for both of us." A man who had not buried his wife 3 years ago might have hesitated, might have said something polite, might have stood up. Ethan looked at her. He glanced once toward the window where the rain was making slow streaks down the glass. Then he did something she did not expect. He pulled his chair forward closer so the small table between them got smaller. He put his hands flat on the wood, and he spoke quietly enough that only she could hear. "You just gave me a very easy way out," he said. "I'm not going to take it." Claire opened her mouth to answer. She didn't have one. "You may have been her at some point in your life. The one who hands people the exit before they ask for it. The one who decides ahead of time how the story ends. We tell ourselves it's protection. We tell ourselves it hurts less this way. But friend, listen. The exits we open for other people are usually the doors we end up locking on ourselves. The next time you feel that old reflex, the one that says, "Let me leave first, what if you stayed for one more breath?" Just one. Just to see what happens in the second after the door doesn't close. Claire sat there with her mouth half open, holding the shape of a sentence she could not finish. For a few seconds, the only sound in the cafe was the espresso machine clearing its throat behind the counter. She picked up her cup, set it down again, and tried to remember how breathing worked. "I don't know what to do with that," she said finally. "With what?" "With a man not taking the easy way out. It's not in my training." Ethan let a small smile touch the corner of his mouth, the first real one of the night. "You can just sit there," he said. "That's allowed." She tried to. She really did. But the wall she had spent 2 decades building did not come down because one man refused to walk through the door she'd held open for him. If anything, his refusal made the wall taller because now it had to defend against something new. Kindness she could not explain. Kindness she did not trust. "Are you sure?" she asked. "Because honestly, I can read a room. I'd rather skip the polite part where you sit through dinner so you can tell Marcus you tried." "I'm not performing," Ethan said. "Everyone says that." He set his cup down. "I'm just having a cup of coffee with someone I just met." She studied him then harder than she had let herself before. He had a calm in his shoulders that didn't read as confidence exactly. It read as someone who had already lived through the worst version of an evening and had decided this one wasn't it. There was a small scar at the base of his thumb, a few flecks of what might have been sawdust still clinging to the cuff of his shirt. He was not what she had pictured. She wasn't sure what she had pictured. Probably someone who would be looking for an exit. The fact that he wasn't was more disorienting than rejection would have been. There is a thing almost no one says out loud, but most of us know it the way we know our own pulse. The most wounded among us are not the ones who stopped believing in love. They are the ones who stopped believing they were worthy of it. Claire had not built that wall to keep Ethan out. She had built it so that when he eventually left and she was certain he would leave, she could tell herself she'd known all along. Knowing in advance had become her shield. The trouble with that kind of shield is that it does not save you from the blow. It only teaches you to expect the blow. And after a while, you stop being able to tell the difference between expecting pain and inviting it. He asked her what she did for a living, and she heard herself slide back into the script. "I produce a podcast. A literary podcast, if that doesn't sound too pretentious. We interview writers, mostly novelists, some poets. I do the booking, the prep, the editing. I don't host. I'm the one in the booth." "You like that." "I love it." "Why aren't you the host?" She gave him the answer she always gave, the one that had been polished by 100 dinner parties and 1,000 moments of self-deprecation. She tried to keep it light. "Because I like working behind the microphone. Voices don't have a body. People listen differently when they can't see you." The line had always worked. People nodded sympathetically. People moved on. People let her have her cover. Ethan did not move on. He set his coffee down and looked at her in a way that made her feel for a half second like he was actually listening. Not waiting for his turn to talk. Listening. "You really believe that?" he asked. "That voices don't have a body. It's a metaphor. It's a hiding place." She laughed, but it came out brittle. "Wow, we're getting personal fast." "I've been listening to you for 15 minutes, he said, gentle. "And I've watched you swerve away from 3 things you actually meant to say. You did the cookie joke instead of saying you were nervous. You did the Marcus and Rachel joke instead of saying you almost didn't come. And you just told me you love your job by explaining why you stay invisible at it. I'm not trying to corner you. I'm just paying attention." She felt her face go hot. She wanted to be angry. Anger would have been efficient. But the thing that came up instead was something closer to relief. The terrible, dangerous relief of being seen by someone who wasn't blinking away. "That's a parlor trick," she said. "It's not a trick. How would you know to do that?" He looked down at his hands. Because I lived with someone for 9 years who did the same thing, he said. Different version of it, same instinct. She did not know yet that he meant his wife. She would in a minute. "Why did you say yes to this?" she asked. She had been wanting to ask it since the moment she sat down. She'd held it back because she was afraid of the answer. Now it just fell out of her the way truths do when the person across from you has stopped flinching. He took a long time before he answered. She did not interrupt the silence because something about the way his eyes had gone soft told her he was looking at something she could not see. "My wife's name was Sarah," he said. He said it carefully. The way a man says something he has not let himself say to a stranger in a long time. "She died 3 years ago. Breast cancer. We had 4 years of it all in. Surgery, chemo, remission, recurrence, more chemo, the whole map." His voice did not break, but it slowed. There was a season in there, the second round of treatment, where she gained a lot of weight. The drugs did it. Her body was holding water, holding everything. And then in the last months, she lost it all, lost more than that. By the end, she didn't recognize herself in pictures from 1 year before. Claire was very still. There was one night somewhere in the middle of it, maybe a year before she died. She'd come out of the shower and she was standing in our bathroom in front of the mirror. She wasn't crying loud. She was crying the way you cry when you've been holding it for a long time and you forgot you were doing it. He swallowed. She said, "I don't know who that is anymore. I don't recognize myself." And I sat down on the bathroom floor next to her on those cold tiles, and I told her the only thing I knew how to tell her. I said, "I recognize you. That's my job." The cafe had not gotten quiet exactly, but Claire's hearing had narrowed. She could hear Ethan and the small, wet sound of the rain on the window and not much else. She did not know what to do with what he had just given her. She had come into this room ready to be pitied. She had not come ready to be entrusted. We grow up thinking love is the big offering, the grand gesture, the roses, the speeches, the rings, but there is a quieter version of love almost no one teaches us about. It is the version where someone refuses to lose track of who you are, even on the days you have lost track yourself. I recognize you. That's my job. That isn't a vow most of us hear. Maybe not even once. Maybe especially not from the people who were supposed to say it. And the heartbreak of that is real, friend. But here is the part that took the longest to learn. We can become the kind of person who says it back to someone else. And on the loneliest nights, we can even learn to say it to ourselves. She did not say any of this to him. She said something smaller because small was what she could manage. That's a beautiful thing to have said to her. It was true, that's all. For maybe 20 minutes after that, something shifted that neither of them quite named. They talked about books. He had read more poetry than she would have guessed. She had strong opinions about Toni Morrison that he listened to without interrupting. She found out that he was a draftsman at a small architecture firm in Brooklyn, and that on weekends he built furniture in his garage, mostly for his daughter. He found out that she had been a competitive swimmer in high school. He raised an eyebrow at that, and she heard herself say, almost without flinching, "I was good. I was actually good." She told him about Maya without him having to coax it. He told her his daughter was learning the ukulele badly, and that she was very serious about her badness. He played her a video on his phone of a small girl in a green dress, eyes closed in concentration, butchering a song that might have been "You Are My Sunshine." Claire actually laughed, head tipped back, the laugh reel this time, not a shield. Ethan watched her face when she did it. He didn't say anything about it. But she saw him notice. Lena, the woman behind the counter, came over with a fresh pot of coffee. She had not needed to refill them. She did it anyway. She poured slowly. She lingered. She didn't smile at them exactly. She did something better. She let them be. Then she walked back to her station and went on wiping the bar with a folded white towel that did not really need wiping. Maybe you've had a Lena in your life. The kind of person who never says anything important, but who is somehow always there for the moments that turn out to matter. They don't intervene. They don't fix anything. They just stand close enough that you know you're not alone in the room. We tend to underestimate that kind of presence because it doesn't look like much. But friend, I'll tell you something. Being a Lena for someone just standing close, just refusing to look away, is one of the small, holy things a person can do for another person. Most of the saving in this world doesn't get done with grand speeches. It gets done by people who simply do not leave. Things might have ended well right there. 2 people, a fresh pot of coffee, a quiet room, the rain easing up outside. The night already further along than either of them had planned. But the wall Claire had built had been built for a reason, and walls do not come down in 20 minutes. It was Trevor and Megan, the couple 2 tables over, who set it off, though they did not mean to. They stood up to leave. Trevor helped Megan into her jacket, the way men do when they are still trying to impress the woman they have already gotten. They walked past Ethan and Claire's table on their way out. Trevor did not look at them. Megan did. And Megan, who was a perfectly decent young woman who had not laughed earlier, did the worst thing a perfectly decent young woman can sometimes do. She softened her face. She offered Claire a tiny, sympathetic smile. The kind of smile that is meant to communicate, "I see you, sister, and I am rooting for you." For most people, that smile would have been kindness. For Claire, it was a knife. Because what Claire's whole nervous system heard in the 10th of a second it took for that smile to reach her was something else entirely. Poor girl. He won't call you back. But good for you for trying. Megan slowed near the door. She slowed because Trevor had stopped to button his coat against the cold and because something in the air behind her had shifted in a way she could not name yet. Claire was already standing. "I'm sorry," she said, and her voice was very flat now, the kind of flat people get when they are trying not to fall apart in public. "I'm sorry. I can't do this. This was a mistake. Please tell Marcus I tried." She reached for her bag. A different man might have grabbed her hand. A different man might have stood up too fast and made a scene. Ethan did neither. He stayed seated. He kept his hands where they were flat on the table. And he said in a voice that was not loud but somehow carried across the small space between them, "You can leave. I won't stop you. But I'd like you to leave because you want to leave. Not because you're guessing what I think." She froze. Bag on her shoulder. One foot already turned toward the door. She tried to take a step. She couldn't. Something in her chest, something that had been pulled tight for a very long time, gave way. She did not collapse exactly. She just stopped being able to hold herself in the shape she had spent 20 years holding herself in. Her face did the thing faces do when crying ambushes you in public. The mouth went first. The eyes followed. Her shoulders came up to her ears as if they could hide what was happening. And they couldn't. She sat back down. She didn't mean to. Her body decided. She put both hands over her face. "I'm so tired," she said into her palms. Her voice came out muffled and very young. "I'm so tired of doing this. I'm so tired of getting ahead of every room I walk into, trying to guess what people are going to think about me, so I can hurt myself first, and it'll hurt less when they do it. I'm so tired of laughing at myself before anyone else gets the chance. I'm 29 years old, and I don't even know what it feels like to walk into a room without bracing for impact. I don't remember. I don't remember when I last didn't brace." Behind the counter, Lena set down her towel. She did not move toward them. She did not move away. She just stood there, both hands flat on the bar, watching the rain on the window like she was giving them privacy without giving them distance. 2 stools down at the bar, an older man in a worn brown jacket. Mr. Wallace, who came in most evenings for a single cup of decaf and a slice of whatever pie Lena had cut that morning, looked down into his cup. He did not look away because he was uncomfortable. He looked away because he understood. He had buried his wife 11 months ago. He knew what it sounded like when a person finally let go of something they had been carrying alone for too long. Trevor and Megan, who you'd think were already gone, were not. Megan had stopped near the door, one hand still on the handle because she had heard most of what Claire just said, and her body had simply refused to keep walking. Trevor beside her had stopped because she had. Her face had gone the strange color faces get when a person realizes in real time that her small earlier kindness might have been a small earlier wound. "I want to ask you something, just between us. The first voice you ever heard that taught you to be ashamed of your body, of your face, of the size of you in this world. Do you remember whose voice it was?" Most of us do if we're honest. A parent, a coach, a relative at a holiday table, a boy in 7th grade who said something he probably forgot by lunch. We carried it home and we kept it. We kept it so long that one day, somewhere along the way, it stopped sounding like their voice. It started sounding like ours. Claire was 29 years old in that cafe, but the person crying into her hands was a much younger girl somewhere around 12, hearing a sentence she should never have had to hear. If there is a harsh voice in your head right now, friend, the one that lists your faults before you have your morning coffee, I just want you to consider something tonight. Is that voice actually yours? Or is it something you've been wearing for so long that you mistook it for your own skin? Claire was still crying behind her hands. Quieter now. The kind of cry that comes after the worst of it, when the body has nothing left and the air finally gets back in. Ethan did not reach across the table. He did not touch her. He had learned with Sarah that some kinds of weeping should not be interrupted. He said one thing very quietly. Take your time. And he meant it. He had nowhere else he needed to be. Claire took her hands down. Her face was a mess. Her mascara had given up. She looked at him through wet eyelashes and her voice came out rough, almost laughing at how broken it was. I'm so sorry, I never do this. You can do this. No, I mean I don't do this. Ever. In public. I don't even cry in front of Rachel. Maybe it was time. She let out a sound that was half laugh, half something else. She pressed the heel of her hand against her eyes. I bet you're really regretting saying yes to Marcus right now. No, he said. I'm not. There are tears that mean weakness. And then there are the other kind. The kind that come out when after years and years of bracing a person finally meets someone who refuses to step over them. That second kind isn't weakness. It's a thaw. It's the first warm day after a long winter, and the ice has to go somewhere. If you have been frozen for a long time, friend, the day you finally cry in front of someone who doesn't flinch will feel like falling apart. It isn't. It's the opposite. It's the moment you finally stop having to carry yourself alone. Maybe there is no person in your life right now in front of whom you could let yourself break. Maybe you have been the strong one for so long that no one would even know how to receive it from you. If that is true tonight, I just want to tell you something. Until that person arrives, can you start by being that person for yourself? Can you let yourself just once this week set the weight down? Not forever, just long enough to remember what your shoulders feel like without it. Claire took a long breath, the kind of breath that goes all the way down for the first time in years. She looked at the man across from her, this stranger, who was not a stranger anymore, and she did not know what came next. But for the first time in a very long time, she had not bolted, and that in itself was a beginning. Claire wiped her face with the heel of her hand and tried to laugh. It came out wet and small. Okay, she said. Okay, now I really am the gift you didn't ask for. A crying woman in a coffee shop. Marcus owes you so much for this. Ethan didn't move. You're not what I didn't ask for. She shook her head. She wasn't ready to hear that yet. The wall had cracked, but cracking is not the same as falling. She looked down at the dark surface of her cooling coffee, and when she spoke again, her voice was steadier in the way voices get steady right before they say the worst thing. You see this, she said. This right here. This is why people shouldn't date me. I'm not a beautiful kind of difficult. I'm not the cute kind of broken that you can fix in 3 months and post about. I'm just heavy. In every sense of the word, I'm a burden. The room had not gone silent before. It went silent now. Trevor was still standing near the door with Megan. He had the look of a man who had walked back into a movie and could not figure out how the plot had moved this far without him. Megan's eyes were wet. She had reached for Trevor's hand without seeming to know she was doing it. He had let her take it. He was not laughing now. He was not anything now. He was just a young man who somewhere in the last 20 minutes had remembered that he had a sister. Lena's towel hung in her hand, forgotten. At the bar, Mr. Wallace took off his glasses and folded them carefully and set them on the napkin in front of him. Then he laid both his hands on either side of his coffee cup, the way men of a certain generation do when they are gathering themselves for something. Ethan looked at Claire for a long time without speaking. She felt the look. It did not feel like pity. It felt like something else, something steadier, something she didn't have a word for. When he finally spoke, his voice was quiet, the kind of quiet that makes a room lean in. "My daughter's name is Maya," he said. "She's 7. 3 weeks ago, she came home from school. She dropped her backpack on the floor inside the front door, and she asked me a question that I did not answer for 3 days." Claire lifted her eyes to his. "She asked me, 'Daddy, am I ugly?'" Somewhere in the room, a small, sharp breath was drawn in. It might have been Megan. It might have been Lena. Ethan did not look around. He kept his eyes on Claire, and I didn't know what to say. Because I'll tell you something, Claire. If I'd told her what every father is supposed to say, if I'd said, "No, baby, you're beautiful," I would have been teaching her something I didn't want to teach her. I would have been teaching her that her worth was sitting on the other side of that answer. That she needed to be confirmed beautiful before she could be confirmed worthy. And one day, somewhere down the line, somebody was going to tell her she wasn't beautiful. Somebody always does. And the whole world I'd built for her was going to fall down because I'd built it on a mirror. He was not performing. He was not raising his voice. He was speaking to Claire the way a man speaks when he is finally telling the truth out loud about something he has been turning over alone for a long time. So for 3 days, I didn't say anything. I kissed her goodnight and I went and sat on the back step and I tried to figure out what a father is supposed to put inside his daughter that nobody else can take out. He took a slow breath. On the 3rd night I came into her room. I sat down on the edge of her bed and I told her this. I said, "Maya, I don't know what other people see when they look at you. I can't promise you what they'll see, but I can tell you what I see. When you laugh, I forget I'm hungry. When you read out loud to me, I forget I'm tired. When you hold my hand at the grocery store, I forget that your mother isn't here anymore. People are going to look at you, baby, and some of them are not going to see anything. But that's a problem with their eyes, not with you." The whole room was holding its breath. Ethan's eyes had gone shining. He didn't bother to hide it. "Claire, a few minutes ago you told me I could leave. And then you told me you were a burden. I'm not going anywhere. Because if I get up and walk out of this room tonight, then tomorrow morning when my daughter looks at herself in the mirror and asks me that question again, I'm not going to have anything to tell her. The only way I get to keep saying that to her is if I mean it about other people too. So I need you to hear this from me. You're not a burden. You're a person sitting across from another person. That is the whole thing. That's all anyone has ever been." The silence after he stopped speaking lasted maybe 5 seconds. It felt longer. Lena turned her face away and pressed her wrist to her eyes. A pot of coffee was hissing somewhere behind her and she did not seem to hear it. Megan by the door was crying openly now, the quiet kind of crying that she would later not be able to explain to anyone, including Trevor, who had his arm around her and was looking at the floor with very red eyes. At the bar, Mr. Wallace stood up. He moved slowly the way a man moves when his knees have outlived their warranty. He walked across the wood floor of the cafe past the empty tables and he stopped beside Claire's chair. She looked up at him surprised, blinking through her own tears. He laid one weathered hand on her shoulder. His hand was so light it almost wasn't there. "Young lady," he said. His voice was a low, sandy thing. "I lost my wife 11 months ago. She weighed 230 pounds the day she died. I never kissed anybody more beautiful than her. Not once in 51 years. He patted her shoulder, just once. Then he walked back to the bar without waiting for her to answer. He sat down. He picked up his glasses. He put them back on. He did not look around. Claire's hand had come up to cover her mouth. She looked at Ethan and Ethan looked at her. She tried twice to speak. The first time, nothing came. The second time, she said very small, "I don't know how to answer any of that." "You don't have to," he said. "You just have to sit here." So she did. They sat for a long time after that, maybe half an hour. They did not say much. There was nothing left that had to be said for a while. Lena, without a word, came over and set down 2 warm slices of apple pie with vanilla ice cream melting at the edges. When Claire opened her mouth to protest by reflex, Lena just shook her head once and said, "Honey, not tonight." Tonight you accept the pie." Claire let out a small, ruined laugh. She picked up her fork. The rain outside had stopped sometime during Ethan's story. Neither of them had noticed. "I want to say something to you here, friend. Something that I think is the real reason a room full of strangers cried that night. It was not because the story about Maya was sweet. The world has plenty of sweet stories. It was because every single person in that room had been Maya. Every one of us at some age from somebody asked our own version of that question. Am I ugly? Am I enough? Am I someone worth loving? And most of us did not get the answer Maya got. Most of us got silence. Or worse, an answer with no words written on the face of someone we trusted. Ethan's words could not undo that wound for the people listening. But what they did do was something almost as important. They reminded everyone in that cafe that the wound was never their fault. It was a problem with the eyes that had looked at them. It was never a problem with what the eyes were looking at. When they finally stood up to leave, it was almost 10. Ethan helped Claire into her coat. Lena behind the counter would not let either of them pay. She just waved them toward the door with a folded towel and a face that had decided its position. Outside, the air was cold and clean. The streetlights were doubled in the wet pavement. Ethan walked Claire to the corner. He did not try to kiss her. He did not promise to call. He did one thing. "Next Saturday," he said. "Same place. I'll be at that table from 7 to 9. You come or you don't come. Either way, I'll be there." She nodded. She didn't trust her voice yet. He gave her a small half-smile and turned and walked toward the subway in the other direction. Claire walked toward her own train. She walked slowly. The streets were almost empty the way Brooklyn streets get on a Saturday after the rain, when everyone has either gone in for the night or has not come out yet. Halfway down the block, she passed the dark window of a small bookstore that was already closed for the night. The lights inside were off, but the street lamp behind her made the glass into a low, soft mirror. She stopped. She had walked past windows like that her whole life. She had a routine for it. She had a way of angling her shoulders. She had a way of pulling her coat in. She had the practiced half-smile that she used to disarm her own reflection before it could disarm her. She did not do any of those things this time. She looked. She looked at the woman in the dark glass, coat damp at the shoulders, eyes still a little swollen, hair starting to come loose from where she had pinned it 3 hours and a lifetime ago. She did not flinch. She lifted her hand slowly and tucked a piece of her hair behind her ear. It was a tiny gesture, the kind of thing women do without thinking 100 times a day. Except she could not remember the last time she had done it without the thought, "You look heavier from that side," arriving with it. This time, the thought did not come. She just tucked her hair, looked at herself once more, and started walking again. The corner ahead of her was bright with the next streetlight. Behind her somewhere, a man was walking home to a sleeping 7-year-old who had asked him a question he had been brave enough to take seriously. "Friend, I want to say one last thing to you, just to you, before this story closes. In your life, you may not get an Ethan. That is the truth, and I will not lie to you about it. There are people who wait a whole lifetime for the person who will sit across from them and refuse to look away. Some of them never get that person. I'm sorry. That is real. But here is the thing. You do not have to wait for an Ethan to start becoming an Ethan to yourself. You can be the first person who does not step over you. You can be the first one who does not laugh before anyone else gets the chance. You can be the one who, after all these years, finally recognizes the person in the glass. And if one day you find yourself sitting across from someone who is breaking for any reason at all, for their weight or their skin or some private thing they have decided makes them not enough, I want to ask you one favor. Don't get up, don't walk out, because it might be the first time in their entire life that someone didn't. And one person who didn't walk out is sometimes the whole reason a person decides finally that they are allowed to stay. Thank you for sitting through this story with me tonight. I noticed. You didn't look away either.